Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video we will be diving into Docker Compose and Dockerfile updates for our clean architecture application. So I will guide you through the steps of creating a Dockerfile and Docker Compose setup that integrate seamlessly with your clean architecture. Whether you're new to Docker or looking to improve your workflow, this video will cover everything you need to get your application running in a containerized environment. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Please leave a like and subscribe, and let's start. Dockerfile is a script that contains instructions on how to build a Docker image. It defines the environment that app will run it. So I will show some example of a Dockerfile. If you remember, when we generate the project, we have also made a Dockerfile. So the .NET automatically created this Dockerfile. So we will explain it a little bit now. So we start from the official image that we download from the internet with this and we name it base. So as you can see we download 8.0 ASP.NET image. We'll change that to the 9.0. Or later, let me explain first everything. In here we set up the user, we set up the work directory that will be inside our Docker, that will be app. We expose some ports so that we can access our application. Here you can see we also download some other image and we name it build. This is a good approach to have multiple build stages so you can faster build your images. And so you can in your images have the things only that you need. So in here we have some configuration like build configuration release, work directory again. Then we copy our CSPROI and our project. We build .NET Restore to build our packages and everything. We copy everything. We again go to the Web API and we build our .NET project. Okay, and this is the final stage of our project where we build the publish and we publish our project Web API with this configuration. And now as final stage, we go toward the tab, we copy everything from publish, as you can see, from this name to the app publish and entry point where this will be our DLL file from where we start our application. So now when you run it, you will be able to run our Docker image and whole application from this Docker file. You could also see on the internet the details about every one of these commands, what does it do. But I have explained in few words. So now what do we need? As you remember, we upgrade our application to .NET 9. So we need also that images. We need also to pull from the internet .NET 9 SDK and ASP.NET 9 also. And now we will be able to build from this image our app. We have built a custom image. What now? Now we need to have our Docker Compose file. What's Docker Compose? Docker Compose, it can help us build multiple images or multiple containers. The images will be running inside the Docker container. So Docker container is like some minimal OS that can run the things. It can like database, like our web API or things like that. And with Docker Compose, we can explicitly say in there, like we want to build our web API, we want our one database, second database. We put the commands for our containers. So let's do it. So we'll switch to the file system and then we can go in the directory named Docker, like that. Inside there, we will add new file. It will be called docker compose.dev. It's YAML. Now, what do we code here? The Docker in the top, we can specify the version, but we could also avoid it. We need to specify our services. So our Docker containers. So what do we need? We need our web API. This will be our web API. In here, we can specify something like container name. What will be name of our container? Let's specify again web API. We will have next build. In here, we can go with context. What is this context? This will be either a path or directory containing a Dockerfile. So this will be our web API. In here, as you can see, you can just go to space. It will be like Dockerfile. So where's our Dockerfile located? Web API Docker file. As you can see, like that. Okay. Next thing we need is the network. The network, we need to specify how our containers can communicate. So we will specify networks. We will go something like web API network. Okay, and we need to specify driver. This is important. Bridge, so everyone can talk with everyone inside our network. And now inside here, you can go just like here, networks, and specify web API network like this. So this will use this network. But also we need to ports. So we need to specify which ports will be open. In our case, we'll go like 8080. So this is the port that will be open on our container, and this is the port that will be open on our local host that we can access. Okay. So we have created the web API. What do we need more? We need our database also. So we will add a new service. Container name DB. Next, we need the image. Because we are using MS SQL, you can go inside Docker and you can type. So in here is our Docker image. I have already some image downloaded. So we will just use this. Actually, I have just pulled it, so you do not need to download it. That's the good part. You just have to specify in here like this image, and that will be our image that we will use. Okay. And the next thing we also need to do is do some environment variables to specify. So what do we need? We need to accept the agreements of MS SQL by saying like this. And we also need to add our password. For now, we'll just use SA user. So we'll just specify SA password. And we will call it like maybe something like this. Okay. So this will be our database password. We also need the ports. So the database is on 1433. We will let it stay like this. We need also to specify the network so our web API and our database can communicate. Okay, web API network like this. And also here we need to specify depends on. So our web API depends on our database. So we will first build the DB, then our web API. Like that. One more thing that we need is volumes. So what are volumes? Volumes is a way to persist some data inside our containers. So we can create some value called db data and we will make driver local. Okay. So now we have this volume that will persist on container calls. So when we restart our container, our volume data stays intact. So how do we connect it? We will use actually our database. So we will specify volumes, and in here we call our db data like that, and we specify where this will be default folder for MS SQL. So in this way, our db data will be stored in db data folder on our local host. Okay, and it will persist the database data with reruns and restarting of the containers. So now let's see how we can start our application. What do we need to do? We need to go here and edit some configurations. As we can see, we have here some configurations. We will remove them. Okay. We will create a new configuration. Docker compose. Okay. We'll specify a name like Docker compose build. Run compose file. We need to specify which file to run. We will go for Docker and this Docker compose file. Okay. So we fixed that the context is inside the root solution and our Dockerfile is in web API Dockerfile. We will just run it, and as you can see, it's building, it's restoring the project now, the main application. Web API infrastructure. Publishing. Okay, as you can see, we have volume Docker data network, our container DB, our container web API. So if we go into Docker Compose, what do we have? We have some containers. As you can see, it crashed. Our Docker web API crashed for some reason. So we need to change our default connection string. Okay. Our server will be called DB because that's the container name. Database readme dev. That's okay. We will let this trust certificate true. Okay. We also need the user ID. User like this. ID equal to SA and password is equal to code.12 like that. Okay. Also in specified port 1433. We need to apply all our pending migrations so we can use our database, because currently when we create a new database, our database is not, there's empty. Like we use RandMe database here, but it doesn't exist. So I'm gonna now show you a way to update our database. We will create here some try catch block so we can catch the exception, and in here we can show you or just exception. So we need to get our DB. Okay, our DB equal to app services dot get required service based on type database context. Okay, so what will this do? It will throw exception if there is no service registered with DB. Okay, we could also in here use the logger, maybe to log our messages. We could go something like if like that, the environment is development, and you could use like logger error. Error applying creations. Get queries. Let's change that just this to migrations. Okay, and now in here do something like this. Await and apply migrations. So is this code correct? It is not. We have one problem in here. That is how we use this app services. App services resolves correctly only the singleton and transient services, but not the scoped ones. And our database context is a scoped service. So we cannot use these app services like that. We should create a unique scope. But what about logger? Logger is actually a singleton and it could be used like this. So if we could go to, for example, where did we press use serial log? If we go here and add serial log in here, as you see, every time adds singleton service. Okay. So that's why we can use in here this. We will use the scope. So we will use this using like that to dispose. Okay, our scope. And in here you can use not this is fine. We will let this stay like this. but we'll use in here our scope dot service provider like that. Okay, and that's it. So why is the database context scope service? Because it allows our application to work in parallel. So for every scope service creates a new database context. That means new database context is created for every request. So that means that every request has its own context. We can use the multi-threading. We can execute many requests to our database at the same time. Okay, now let's test this out. We'll see if the duration is applied now. It should. And here you can see the log of your web API. You can see the log. Okay, and okay, create table, create. You see that how many tables it has created. We can use SQL Server to connect to our database by using connect database engine. We specify localhost. It's SA code .12 like that, and we connect to it. Grant me dev tables. Okay, we have our tables. Insert our guest type. We can maybe insert some data. Insert to. Okay, we have the values here. Name, code, description, something like that. Okay. Let's execute. Okay, one row affected. Select table. Okay. We have this now. Let's check if this works. Let's open localhost, localhost figure. Okay, so we see it works. It's on the port 88 feed that we specified in our Docker Compose. As you remember, in here, database is default port for our database. And in here, if we get guest type, we see the data. Okay, so it works. Everything works fine. So what did we do in this video? We managed to create a Docker Compose, managed to use Dockerfile that was already created, update it to .NET 9, and we also use Docker Compose to build both the web API, our backend, and our database in here. This Docker Compose is very useful because you can add multiple services. You can add one more service for front end. You can add service for load balancer, for custom mail server, for custom service for storage. As much things as you want, as long as you have some memory. And you can customize them, use the volume, store data, do whatever you want. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and learned something today. Please leave a like and subscribe, and see you guys in the next video. Bye.